Greetings and take some notes. Sorry, that's nothing crazy. Okay, let's not shit walk. Radical Candors. Skin Talk. Kim Scott. Introduction. I'm just gonna pass by the introduction because I just want to do the readings. Wait, do we actually have? Actually, it doesn't matter. Build radically candid relationship, bringing your whole self to work. Ugh, bringing my whole self to work. A little bit. So, build radically candid relationship, bringing your whole self to work. It's called management. These are jobs. I usually feel a little surge of pleasure when I step out the elevator into a cavernous former warehouse in East Village we rent as an office of Juice Software, the startup I co-founded in 2000. That was I just felt stress. The engineer had work night and the weekends. The engineer has work night and weekends on an early beta version of our products, which would be ready in a week. This sales team has gotten third big name customer lined up for beta testing. If those customers were using our products, we were able to raise another round of funding. If not, we ran out of money in 6 months. That was one blocker. Me. The night before, one of our angel investors, Dave Rocks, has told me he thought our pricing was all wrong. Think about the last time you brought a used car, one that cost less than 10 grand. Now think about the guy who sold it to you. That's who our salesperson will be. That's who represent you in the market. I know in my gut Dave was right, but I couldn't go to my sales team or my board and change everything just based on our gut feelings. I need to sit down, do some analysis fast. I cleared my schedule of meetings for the morning so I could do just that. I got only a few steps into the office when a colleague suddenly ran up. He needed to talk immediately. He needed to talk right away. He had just learned that he need a kidney transplant. Wait, not do He needed to, he needed to talk right away. He had just learned that he might need a kidney transplant, and he was completely freaked out. After an hour and two cup of tea, he seemed calmer. I walked toward my desk, past the engineer whose child was in the ICU. Must check in. How would your son do last night? I asked. He hasn't improved, as he told me the as he had and as he told me how the night has gone, we both have tears in our eyes. I convinced him to leave the office and go and take care of himself for an hour before returning to the hospital. I left his dad in dream, passing by our quality assured manager. His child has better news. She just received the highest score in the entire state on a standardized math test. He wanted to talk about it. I felt emotional with lash as I jumped from sympathy to celebration. By the time I got back from my desk, I had no time or emotion reserved to think about pricing. I care about each of these people, and I would also feel worn out, frustrated that I couldn't get any real work done. Later that day, I called my CEO, Coach Lees, to complain it's my job to build a great company. He am as or I'm really just some sort of emotional babysitter. Leslie, a fiercely opinionated ex-Microsoft executive, could barely contain herself. This is not babysitting, she said. It's called management, and it's your job. Every time I feel like I have something more important to do than listen to people, I remember Leslie word. It's your job. I use Leslie line on dozens of new managers who come to me after a few weeks in their new roles. Morning, they feel like the babysitters or shrink. We undervalue emotional labor of being the boss. The term is usually reserved for people who work in the service or health industry, psychiatrists, nurse, doctor, waiters, flight attendants. But as I will show in the page to come, this emotional labor is just not part of the job. It's the key to being a good boss. Okay. Okay. So how to be a good boss. Given my line of work, I get asked by most people I met how to be a better boss, manager, leader. I get questions from people who work for me, the CEO I coach, the people who attended a class I taught, talk I gave. I get questions from people who using management software system that Russ and I co-found a company, Candor Inc., to build. Other has submitted their management dilemma to our website, but the question also come in parent parents sitting next to me at the school who doesn't know how to tell babysitter not to feed the kids too many sugar. The contractor is frustrated when his crew doesn't show up on time, or a nurse who have been promoted to a supervisor and is telling me how to bewildering it is. As she take my plus pressure, I felt I should taking hers. The business executive, who's speaking with extravagant patient on his phone as we board, snap is shut and ask people, "What did I hire this goddamn moron?" I get it. Like, oh yeah. The the friend is still haunted by the expression on the face of employee whom she laid off a year ago. Regardless of whom asked the question, they tend to reveal underlying anxiety. Many people feel like they aren't good as managing as they at the real part of the job. Often they fear they're failing people who are reporting to them. Why I hate to see this kind of stress, I find these conversations productively because I know how it can help. By the end of these talks, people feel much more confident that they can be a great boss. There's often a funny preamble to the question I get because most people don't like the word for their role. Boss evoke injustice. Manager sounds bureaucratic. Leader sounds self-aggrandizing. I prefer the word boss because the distinction between leadership and management tend to define leaders as BSer, BSer who doesn't actually do anything, and manager is petty executor. Also, there's a problematic hierarchical difference implied in these words, as if leaders no longer have to manage when they achieve a certain level of success, or and a brand new manager doesn't have to lead. Richard Bio Grabendo, that Intel CEO, asserted management leadership like forehand and backhand. You have to be good at both to win. Managing. I hope at the end of the book you have more positive associated with these words boss, manager, and leaders. Having this bandwidth semantic. The next question is often very basic: what to do with the boss do, go meetings, send emails, tell people what to do, dream up strategy, or expect other people to execute them. It's tempting to suspect them of doing the whole lot of things. Ultimately, though, boss are responsible for the result. They achieve the result by not doing all the work by themselves, but guiding people. Boss guide the team to achieve result. So it's usually guidance, team buildings, and result. The first question I get asked next are clutters around these responsibility as the manager has to do. First, guidance. Guidance often called feedbacks. People dread feedback, both as praise, we can feel patronizing, especially criticism. What if the people get defensive, start yelling, or threaten to sue, or tears? What if the person refuses to understand the criticism, can figure it out what to do to fix the problem? What if there isn't any simpler way to fix the problem? What should the boss say then? Uh, but it's no better than the problem is very simple and obvious. Why doesn't people already know it's the problem? Do I actually have to say it? Am I too nice? Am I too mean? All of these questions loom so large that people often forget they need to so, solid, solicit, solicit, solicit guidance from others and encourage it between them. Second, team buildings. Building a cohesive team means figuring out the right person for the right role. Fuck yeah. Hiring, firing, promoting. But once you got the right people in the right job, how do you keep motivated? Particularly in Silicon Valley, the question sounds like, why does everyone, why does everyone always want the next job when they haven't mastered the job they haven't done it? Fuck yeah. Why do the millennial expect their career to come with instruction like a Lego set? Why do people leave the team as soon as they get up to speed? Why do the wheel keep coming off the bus? Why won't people just do their role and let me do mine? And result, many managers are particularly frustrated when it seems harder than it should be just to get things done. We just double the size of the team, but the result is not twice as good. In fact, there are worse. What happens? Sometimes things move slower. The people work for me would just debate it forever if I let them. Why can they make a decision? But other time, things move too fast. We miss our deadline because the team totally unwilling to do a little planning. Insist on just firing Willie. No ready, no arms. Why can't they think before they act? Or they seem to be on automatic pilot. They're doing exactly the same thing this quarter that they did the last time they did the last quarter. Why do they expect the result to be different? Guidance, team, result, these are responsibility of any boss. This is equally true for anyone who want to manage people. The CEO, middle class, the first leader, COO may have broader problems to deal with, but they still have to work with other human beings with all the work and skill and weaknesses just as apparent and relevant to their success in C-suite as they got their very first management role. It's natural that managers who wonder whether they're doing right for the people by the people who report to them. I address each fully. Relationship, not power, drive you everything. Then it's natural that managers wonder whether they're doing right by the people who report to them. The most important question, the question that goes to the heart of being a good boss, usually doesn't usually ask. An exception was Ryan, the CEO of Quadric. I just started coaching him. And the first question to me was, I've just hired several new leaders on my team. How can I build a relationship with each of them quickly so I can trust them and they can trust me? Very few people focus first on the central difficulties of management that Ryan hits on, establish, establishing a trusting relationship with each person who report directly to you. If you lead a big organization, you cannot have a relationship with anyone, but you can really get to know the people who report directly to you. Many things get in the way, though power and dynamic first and foremost, but also the fear of conflicts, worry about boundary that of what appropriate or professional, fear of fears oh gosh fear fear of losing credibility, time pressure. Oh, I'm still laughing. Nevertheless, these relationship are core to your job. They determine whether you can fulfill your responsibility as the manager. To create a culture of guidance, embrace criticism that will keep everyone moving to the right direction. To understand what motive each people on the team, my team, are doing well. Culture of guidance, drive result collaboratively. If you think that you can do this thing without a strong relationship, you're kidding yourself. I'm not saying that unchecked power, control, authority can work. They work especially when in a band with troop or totally rigid. But if you're reading this book, that's not what you're shooting for. There's a virtuous cycle between you responsibly you strengthen your relationship by learning the best way you can give, and encourage guidance by putting the right people in the right role in your team and by achieving results collectively that you couldn't dream of individually. Of course, there can be a vicious cycle between your responsibility and your relationship. Too, when you fail to give people guidance they need to success in their work, or put people in a role they don't want or aren't well suited for, or push people to achieve results they feel are so unrealistic, you erode trust. Your relationship and your responsibility reinforce each other positively and negatively, and this dynamic is what drives you forward as a manager or leaves you dead behind the water. Your relationship with your direct report affect relationship they have with their direct report and your team culture. Your ability to build trust, human connection with the people who report directly to you will determine the quality of everything that follows. Defining the relationship is vital. They are deeply personal. They are not like any other relationship in your life. But most of us are at loss when we set about to build the relationship. Radical candor, the fundamental, the fundamental, the the fundamental, the fundamental concept of this book can help guide you. Radical candor. Developing trust is not simply a matter of do X, Y, and Z, and you will have a good relationship. Like all human bonds, the connection between boss and the people who report to them are unpredictable and not subject to absolute rule. But I have identified two dimensions that, when pairs, will help you move into positive direction. The first dimension is about being more than just professional. It's about giving a damn, like sharing more about your work yourself and encourage people to report to you to do the same. It's not enough to care only about people's ability to perform a job. To do a good to have a good relationship, you have to be your whole self and care about each of the people who work for you as human being. It's just not business, it's personal and deeply personal. I call this dimension care personally. The second dimension involves telling people when their work isn't good enough and when it isn't, when people are not going to get the role they want, or when you're going to hire a new boss over them, when the result doesn't justify further investment in what they're working on, delivering hard feedbacks, making hard calls about who does what on a team, and holding a high bar of result. Isn't that obviously the job of any manager? But most people struggle with doing these things. Challenging people generally piss them off. And at first, that doesn't seem like a good way to build a relationship or to show that you care personally. But yet, challenging people is often the best way to show them that you care when you're a boss. This dimension I call change. This dimension I call change directly. Radical candor is happen when you put care personally and challenge directly together. Radical candor builds trust and opens the door for the kind of communication that helps you achieve the result you're aiming for, and is directly address the fear people express to me when asking questions about the management dilemma they face. It's turned out that when people trust you and believe you care about them, they are much more likely to accept and act on your praise and criticism, tell you what they really think, where you're doing well, and most importantly, not doing well. Number three is engage in the same variable. Engage in the same variable and embrace the growth. Focus on getting the result. Why radical? I choose this word because so many of us are conditioned to avoid saying what they really think. This is potentially adapt social behavior. It helps us avoid conflicts and environments. But in a boss, this kind of avoidance is distractions like candor. Like candor, the key is to get thing, the key to get people used to, the key to get everyone used to being direct and challenging each other, and you is embracing, emphasizing that it's necessary to communicate clearly enough so that there's no room for interpretation, but it's humbly. I choose candor instead of honesty because there's just not much humility in believing what you know is true. Implicit with candor is that you're simply offering your view of what's going on and that you expect people to offer that. If it turns out that in fact you're one of the you want to know. The most surprising things about radical candors maybe its results are often the opposite of what you fear. You fear people will become angry and vindictive instead of they're usually grateful for the chance to talk it through. And even when you do get the initial anger, resentment, or silliness, those emotions prove to be fleeting when the person you know really care. As as the people who report to you become radical candid with each other, you spend less time meditating. When radical candor is encouraged and supported by the boss, communication flow, resentment have festered come to the surface and get resolved, and people begin to love not just their work but whom they work with and where they work. When people love their job, the whole team is more successful. The resulting happiness is the success beyond success. Care personally, the first dimension of radical candor. My first lesson about why it's important to care personally took place in Moscow in July 4, 1992, while I was standing under the tarp in the rain with 10 of the world's best diamond cutters, whom I was trying to hire. hire. I was working for a New York diamond company. I graduated from college 2 years ago with a degree in Russian liter, lit, liter, literature, literature. My education has seemed irrelevant to my current situation. My assignment just required common sense, not a deep understanding of human nature. I had to convince these people to leave the state owned Russian factory that paid them in rupees, which were almost worthless. I, on the other hand, could pay with US dollars a lot of them. And that was how you motivated people, right? You paid them. Wrong. The diamond cutters wanted a picnic, and so we stood under the tarp eating shallots, grilled chunk of meat, and small tart apples, passing the bottle of vodka around while the diamond cutter peppered me with questions. Their first assignments would be to cut 100-carat diamond into a pair of one-of-the-kind earrings. Who could buy such large jewelries? The diamond cutter want to know. I explained that they were a gift from Saudi's gift to his wife, who was having twins. What did what did I know about using laser to cut diamonds? I promised to take them to Israel to see the latest technology, which was still less efficient than the old copper dish they use. They want to learn English. I promised to teach them myself. Would it be so? Would it also be possible? Would it be also possible to have lunch together, together, together every week or so? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. As we drained those bottle of vodka, another question came: if everything went to hell in Russia, would you get us or our family out there? I understood that was the only question that really mattered. By the end of the picnic, I finally realized that the most important thing I could do that the state could never do is simply giving a damn personally. The diamond cutter took the job. Suddenly, all those late nights of reading long Russian novel became relevant to the business career I stumbled into. I had never been deeply ambivalent about becoming a boss when I saw boss as robotic dream killers. Dilbert like Soul Cruiser. Now I realize the question that led me to study Russian literature. Why some people live productively and joyfully while others fuse, as Mark put it, alienate from the labor was central to the boss job. In fact, part of my job was to figure out how to create more joy and less mystery, misery, misery. My humanity was an attribute, not liability to be effective. I need to go to the toilet. I cannot do it anymore. This is crazy. Oh my face is stressed and my face is sore. 2 years after the picnic, I've arranged for 2 years after this picnic, I've arranged for these men first travel outside their homeland, help them to come to grips with these dissonance they felt between the word they saw and what their Soviet education had led them to expect, improved their English, and hung out with their families. They had cut diamond for our company that sold in excess in excess of 100 million per year. It seemed obvious that good bosses must care personally about people who report direct to them. Very few people start out their career thinking, I don't give a damn about the people, so I think I'd be the weak boss. And yes, it's happened all too often that employees feel being treated as pawn on a chessboard or as inferior, not just in corporate hierarchy, but on fundo, fundamental, 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 fundamental human level. Part of the reason, part of the reason. Actually, I'm gonna use the fucking pen to, I don't know, like demonstrate my voice. Like you have no tonation shit. It's okay if I feel like this. So part of the reason, part of the reason, part of the re- part of the reason why people fail to care personally is the injunction to keep it professionally. That phrase denies something essential. We are all human beings with human feelings, and even at work, we need to see we need to be seen as such. When that doesn't happen, we felt we must repress who we are to earn a living. We become alienated. That makes us hate going to work. To most bosses, being professional means show up at work on time, do your job, don't show feelings unless engaged in motivation or such, and driven effort. The result is that nobody feels comfort being who they really are at work. Fred, my coach at Google, had a mantra that condict that just professional approach so destructive to many managers. Bring your whole self to work. This saying has become a meme. Google it and you get a lot of 8 million results. Sherry referred to her 2012 commencement address at Harvard. Other Mike devote a TED talk to it on 12 2016 and Stewart, Slack CEO, had made it a priority for his company. Bringing your whole self to work is one of these concepts that's hard to define precisely, but you develop a feel of it when you start to open up to it. This often means modeling the behavior yourself by showing some vulnerability to the people who report to you or just admitting when you're having a bad day and creating a safe space for others to do the same. In addition to the obsessive devotion to professionalism, there's another, less virtuous reason why people fail to care personally when they become a boss. Some people consciously or unconsciously begin to feel it better or smarter than people who work for them. That attitude makes it impossible to be a kick-ass boss. It just makes people want to kick your ass. There are a few things more damaging to human relationship than a sense of superiority. That's why I detest the word superior as a synonym for bosses. I also avoid the word employee. I once worked for a man who told me in every relationship there's a screw and screwy. Needless to say, I didn't work for him for so long. Of course, if you're a boss, there's some hierarchy involved. There's no use pretending otherwise. Just remember that being a boss is a job, not a value judgment. Caring personally is the antidote to robotic professionalism and managerial arrogance. Why do I say care personally instead of just caring? Because it's not good, because it's not enough to care about the person's work or the person career. Only when you actually care about the whole person with your whole self can build a relationship. Caring personally is not about memorizing birthday or names of family members, or is it about sharing a short detail of one personal life or force a chit chat at social event you would rather not attend? Caring personally is about doing things you already know how to do. It's about acknowledging that we are people with life and aspiration that extend beyond those related to our shared work. It's about finding time for real conversation, about getting to know each other at a human levels, about learning what's important to people, about sharing with one another that make us want to get out of bed in the morning and go to work. And it has the opposite effect. It isn't simply a matter of allowing your approach to your responsibility to show that you don't care. However, you must also care deeply about people while being prepared to behave in return. The movie Miracle, which is centered around the head coach of the 1980 U.S. Men Olympics ice hockey team, depict this really well. Head coach Herf unified his team by pushing them so hard that he became a common enemies. It's clear watching the movie how he cared about each player. And it's painful to watch how long it takes the player to see it. Being a boss can feel like a lonely one-way street at times, especially at first. That's okay. If you can observe the blow, the member of your team are more likely to be good boss to their employee when they have them. Once people know what feels like to have a good boss, it's more natural for them to want it's more natural for them to want to be a good boss. They may never repay you, but they're likely to pay it forward. The reward of watching people you care about flourishing and help others flourishing are enormous. Change directly the second dimension of radical candor. Philosopher Josh, who taught ex- executive at Twitter and Apple, and student at Stanford and MIT, does a great job of explaining why challenging each other is essential. It's not just doing great work, but also to build great relationship. He often used this quote from Storm, the source of everything respectfully in man, in man, in man, either as an intellectual or as a moral being, that his errors are corrigible. His, capa- he is capable of rectifying his mistake by discussion and experience, not by experience alone. There must be discussion to show how experience is to be interpreted. Challenging others and encourage them to challenge you help build trusting relationship because it shows you care enough to the point both the thing aren't going well and those that are and that you're willing to you, you, you are willing to admit when you're wrong and that you're willing to admit when you're wrong and that you're committed to fixing mistake that you or others have made. But because challenging but because challenging often involves disagreeing or saying no. This approach embraces conflicts rather than avoiding it. Former Secretary of State Colin once remarked that being responsible sometimes means pissing people off. You have to accept sometimes people on your team will be mad at you, In fact, if nobody if in fact in fact if nobody is ever mad at you, you probably ain't challenged your team enough. The key, as any relationship, is how you handle the anger. When what you say hurt, acknowledge the other people, acknowledge the per, acknowledge the other person pain. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt or say it shouldn't hurt. Just show what you care. Eliminate the phrase "don't take it personally" from your vocabulary. It's insulting. Instead, offer to help fix the problem, but don't pretend it isn't. But don't pretend it isn't just a problem, just to try to make somebody feel better. In the end, caring personally about the person, even as you challenge them, would build the best relationship of your career. The challenge direct, the challenge directly part of this program can be particularly difficult, especially at the outset. You may have to criticize somebody's work or change their role within if you're still in the process of establishing that trust. I dedicate a good deal of time to show you how to do this throughout the book, but that is not the hardest part. The hardest part of building this trust is inviting people to challenge you, just as directly as you're trying them. You have to encourage them You have to encourage them to shine you directly enough that you may be the one who feel upset or angry. This takes some time. This takes some getting used to, particularly for those authoritarian leaders. But if you stick to it, you'll find that you'll learn a great deal about yourself and how people perceive you. This acknowledge will unfallingly follow you or in your team to achieve better results. My co-founder Russ recently hired Elise to lead Cantor content marketing effort. Russ is pretty opinionated, opinionated, opinionated about the way we describe radical candor. Alice was new to the team and was holding back her opinion. Russ sensitive to not only this dynamic but also to the fact he was her boss, was carefully to make sure he encouraged Alice to challenge both of us just as hard we challenged her, building enough trust between people to enable reciprocal 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 challenge. Irrespectively of reporting relationship take time and attention, I saw a winning moment in building that trust when Russ and Elise were collaborating on a blog post for our website. Elise disagreed with some of Russ' suggested wording and she said so. They went back and forth a few times and it seemed as if Elise was going to back down. Sensing this, Russ said, if we have the data about the work, let's look at the data. But if we have our opinion, let's use yours. Borrowing from Jim of Netcast, but offering the opposite prescription. Russ agreed to Alice's change and data on the reception to Alice's wording provided her right. Emboldened, the next time she argued her perspective, she did so even more forcefully, so much that she worried she might step over a line with her boss she hadn't. And to make that clear, Russ sent across the help you, Jerry clip. In the movie, Jerry and his client Rod get in a big argument, and the punchline feature Rod telling Jerry, "See, that's the difference between us. You think we're fighting? I think we're just finally talking." Get the damn camera. Get the cameras. Get the cameras. Get the fucking cameras. Get the fucking cameras. Get the cameras. Okay, it was kind of like Ready? We talk about the importance of humilities. He talk about the importance of humilities. Radical candor is not a license to be righteously harsh or to front stab. It's not radical candor to be just because you begin with words. Let me be radical candid with you. If you're not filling the phrase with word, you are a liar and I don't trust you, or you a dipshit and you just act like a garden variety jerk. It's not radical if you don't show that you care personally. Radical candor is not an invitation to nitpick. Challenging people directly take real energy, not only from the people you challenge, but from you as well. So do it only for things that really matters. A good rule of thumb for any relationship is to leave three unimportant things unsaid each day. Radical candor is not a hierarchy, hierarchical, hierarchical things. To be radical candid, you need to practice it. You need to practice it up, down, and sideways. Even if your boss and Peter have not bought in to this method, you can create a radical candid microcourse for yourself and the people from your team. You are entitled to process with a little more cautious with your boss and your peers, but ultimately, if it is not possible to be a radical candidate with your boss and your peers, I would recommend finding a different kind of work environment if at all possible. Radical candor is not about smooshing or is it about endless extroversion that exhausts the introvert on your team or wear you out? If you happen to be introvert, it's not about getting drunk or driving go-kart or playing laser tag or having endless dinner with colleagues. Those might be a good way to blow up the steam, but activities like that take up lots of time and are the most efficient way to help you get up efficient way to help you get to know the people you work with or to show them you care personally. Radical candor is not unique to the culture in Silicon Valley or isn't uniquely American. It's human. In fact, it was while working for an Israel company I began to develop my thinking about radical candor. Radical candor is universally human, but intentionally a culture realist. Both dimensions of radical candor are sensitive to context. They can measure at the listener ears, but not the speaker mouth. Um, Radical candor is not a personality type or a talent or a cultural judgment. Radical candor works only if the other person understood that your effort is carried personally and challenging directly or delivered in good faith. We have to be constantly aware of the fact that what seems radically, radically candid to one person or team may feel obvious or too feely to others. Radical candor requires even more judgment. So let's get definitely pay attention to something. Like, here's the thing. If you care, I care. If I don't care, I need to care about it. Clearly, if I care about what people think, here's the thing. So, just, just remember, whatever. Just remember what you know. Yapper. But now let's move on to theoretical cameras Air Zero. So I surely ever graduate. And it's okay. Shortly after I graduated from the business school, I took a job in Delta, a voice startup based in journalism. I was raised in American Star, where people will do most of anything to avoid conflicts and argument. In Israel, the opposite was true. Conversations seem, conversations Conversations seem conversations seem to take on a particularly brutal directness. I would never forget overhearing Noam, CEO, yeah, engineer, that design could be 15 times more efficient. You know you could have built it better. Now we are going to have to rip what you did and start over. We lost a month and for what? Were you thinking? I said, Tosh Group, yes. I began to understand Ursa culture better than Jacob. One of their investors invited me to come over to his house in Jerusalem for Shabbat dinner. His wife, Haviva, was studying to be a rabbi, sometimes rare in the Orthodox community. She had come she had come under attack from a number of people in their synagogue. Jacob was enormously supportive of her, and together two of them explained how they approach traditional doctrine. The way Jacob and his wife questioned ancient interpretation of scripture sometimes remind me of how Noam challenged his engineer. If it was okay to challenge and reinterpret God doctrine, of course it was not a sign of disrespect to argue vehemently with each other. I would been raised in a different culture. Where I grew up, it wasn't uncommon to believe that God created the world in precisely 7 days and consider any mention of revolution heresy. 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 I wasn't a creationist of any more than Noah was an Orthodox Jew, but sometimes a religious culture of our youth have an impact in our willingness to challenge each other at work. I realized I shouldn't take Noam challenge as a sign of respect rather than rudeness. I had a very different experience when I managed a team in Tokyo a few years ago. The team was enormously frustrated with how the product team at Google's US headquarters was approaching ad and mobile application. Yahoo was growing its business quickly, and there were a number of Japanese competitors not far behind. But the Japanese team was so polite to make the problem clearly to the team responsible for product management, so they were getting fixed. So I pushed them to challenge the approach to mobile application at Google headquarters. That seems just stared at me as I thought it was crazy. Like trying to get the team in Tokyo to challenge authority the way Noam did in Jerusalem wouldn't have work. The kind of argument that would be taken as a sign of respect in Tel Aviv would have been offensive in Tokyo if the term radical candor would have felt too aggressive. I found my own standard upbringing helpful in understanding the Japanese perspective. Both culture place a great emphasis on manners and not contradicting people in public. So I encouraged the team in Tokyo to be more politely persistent. Persistent. Being polite was their preferred way to showing they care personally. Being persistent is the way was the way they were most comfortable challenging Google product correction. I was gratified to see the result. The team in Tokyo was just become not just persistent but relentlessly in the campaign to be heard, thanks in part to their polite persistent, a new product ascent from mobile application was born. Another of my favorite radical candor story was that Roy, who worked for Russ and lead the Essence team in China. At first, he was extremely deferential to Russ and I, but once we were convinced him we were wanting to be challenged, he let it rip. He was a real pleasure to work with and one of the most radical candidate manager at Google. A few years ago, he got the opportunity to become president of Yoyi Digital, a 500 people online advertising platform in Beijing. After a few months, he discovered some significant problem with the business. He came clean about them to his board, to all employee. Roy went to extraordinary length to show his team that he cared personally and was going to do everything he could to help them be successful. Not only did he make sure they got significant equity, he mortgaged his home before a new round of financing so they could be paid on time. Now Royce could run one of the most successful businesses in China. I led team over the country, all over the world. The most surprising things I learned that birds The most surprising thing I learned that Brits, despite their politeness, tend to be more candid than New Yorkers. This is thanks to an education system that stress oral argument was much as written. But I've seen firsthand that it's possible to adapt radical candor equally well for Tel Aviv, Tokyo, and Beijing and Berlin. Again, something. Give and encourage guidance, create a culture of open communication. Sorry. Yes. Yes. Shortly after I joined Google, I gave a presentation to Google's CEO and founders on the presentation on the performance of Ascent. Despite the fact that Ascent was doing great, and even though my boss was sitting next to me just in a show of support, I felt nervous. Luckily, we had a good story to tell. The business was growing at an unprecedented rate. As I look around the room, I caught the CEO, Eric, whose head had snapped out of his computer when I declared how many new customers had signed up in the past month. I would distract him from his email and try him. How many did you say? He asked. I repeat the number and he almost fell off his chair. I couldn't have asked for a better reaction. After I finished, I felt that mix of euphoria and relief that followed a successful presentation. My boss was waiting for me by the door and I half expected a high five. Instead, she asked if I walked back to her office with her. I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. Something hadn't gone well. But what? You are going to have an amazing career here at Google, sure again. She know how to get my attention. I had three failed startups under my belt and needed a win. And your ability to be intellectually honest about both sides of an argument, not just your own, but you will create bought you a lot credibility in there. She mentioned three or four specific things I've said to illustrate her point. I'd be worried that I wasn't arguing my point vehemently enough, so it was welcome news to me. I learned a lot today from the way you handled those questions. Um, This this didn't feel like mere flattery. I could tell from the way she stopped and looked at me in the eyes that she meant it. She wanted me to register that something I'd been told about being weak was actually a strength. That was interesting, but I want to feel a way to think about later. That nagging feelings persisted in my stomach. There was an X waiting for here, and what I really want to know was how it went wrong. Ratings. I am not changing the bottom. I'm not a genie in the bottom. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not predicting the future. I cannot predict anything based on my knowledge from what I've learned so far in my life. So, you need to tell me what you want. If you want to pass, just say don't worry. If you want to pass to the homework, most likely the class on the homework is most likely we're gonna go through the homework answering. So, yeah, so they're talk about it. Like you actually have a classmate suffering together. The nagging feelings should have you always want to focus on what you can think better, which I'm sure that you too. We live more from failure than success, but I want to focus from winning what we love. Because overall, it's really just so well. It's a success. I listen at best I could. Finally, she said, "You say a lot. Were you aware of it?" Yeah, I replied. I know I say that too much. Surely she didn't. Surely she couldn't be talking this little walk with me just to walk about the things. Who cares if I say when I have a tire Vitel? Was it because she was nervous? Would you like to tell me? Would you like me to recommend a speech code for you? Google will pay for it. Didn't feel nervous. I said, making a bruising off gesture of my hand as I thought I was shopping a bug away. It was just a verbal tick, I guess. There's no reason to let a small things like a verbal tick trip you up. Like you know, like I made another shoe fly gesture with my hand, and sure laugh. I made when you do that thing with your hand. When you do that thing with your hands, I feel like you're ignoring what I'm telling you. I can see I'm going I can see I'm going to have to be really, really direct to get through you. You are one of the smart person I know and saying so make me sound stupid. Now that got my attention. Cheryl repeat her offer to speech like the good thing is a speaking coach can really help you with thing. If you know somebody could really great, you can definitely fix it. Like maybe I got attention. operationalizing good guidance. Think for a moment about how Shura handled that situation. Even though the overall talk has gone well, she didn't let the positive result get in the way of pointing out something I needed to fix. She did it immediately. So that problem didn't hurt my reputation at Google. She makes sure to point the positive thing. I would the point the positive thing I would accomplish in the presentation, and what's more, she did so thoroughly and sincerely. There was no attempt at sandwiching the criticism with boogie positive. Her first approach was gentle but direct. When it became clear that I wasn't hearing her, she became more directly. Even then, she was careful. Extra care. That's the extra care. If you don't care about it, it's okay. That's the That's not to make it about some essential trait. I was sound stupid, and I was stupid, and I wasn't in this so long. She offered tangible help. I didn't feel like an idiot with defect, but a valuable team member she's ready to invest. But it still stung a little bit. This conversation was extremely effective on two counts. First, it makes me want to solve my problem immediately. After only three concessions with a speech coach, I have made noticeable improvement. Second, it makes me appreciate Shirley and inspire me to give better guidance to my team. The way she gave praise and criticism got me thinking of how to teach other people how to adopt the style of manager about this about this from a 2 minute encounter. Wow, how many times you have to try to give feedback that totally fell flat? How can you lecture giving guidance in a way that confront a specific situation and create risk effective that change how people communicate? You want to know if you want to hear that, yes, because you don't care. She's my person saying I fuck with you. Life is not that serious, but it's gonna be serious. I spent a decade since that encounter coaching the next generation of Silicon Valley leaders to change their perspective and guidance, both praise and criticism. It's surprisingly simple. Anybody can learn it. Um, there's two dimension to guidance to good guidance. Care personally and change directly, as discussed in chapter one. When you do both at the same time, it's radical candor. It's also youth. It's also useful to be clear about what happens when you fail in one dimension, ruinous empathy, the other, obnoxious aggression, aggra- obnoxious aggression, are both manipulative insincerity. Being clear about what happened when you fail to care personally or challenge directly to help you avoid backsliding on into old habit too common to about us. Like many people, many of the people I coach have found this framework helpful in being more conscious of what kind of guidance they're getting, giving, encouraging. Another essential I stress about with my client is vital to remember what's an important lesson of the story. Don't personalize. The name of each quadrant refer to guidance, not personality trait. They are a way to gauge praise and criticism, and to help people remember to do a better job offering both. They are not to be used to label people like laboring, hindering improvement. Ultimately, everybody spends time with each of the quadrant. We are all imperfect. I never met anyone who was always radical candor. This is a personality test. Let's walk through the quadrant. Okay, basically, I think I finished the reading. Let me check. But yeah, this book is kind of eh. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of eh. Like all I think about is my time in my previous company where I actually worked through the thing. Let's start writing. Okay, let's start writing. Okay, so radical candor. Not it. Oh, I'm in the wrong account. Basically, this book is kind of it. Okay, then here. Very concerning. Get that, but I can fix so I'm maybe show that. Okay, so let's start. time dealers. The fuck is that?